What happens when you ask AI to write your university essay? Is it going to write you a really good first-class essay that doesn't seem like it was written by a bit of AI, that seems like it was written by you? And why are universities now so worried about this? Okay, let's find out. Hi guys, my name's Mark Jago. I'm a philosophy professor in the UK, and in this video, I want to talk you through some of the issues that have come up at universities surrounding the use of AI, things like ChatGPT, that students can now use to write their university essays. And I want to think about, is it really writing the kind of essays that you as a student trying to get really good marks want to be turning in for your university course? So I'm going to start off with a little bit of background about why this is going to be such a crucial topic for assessment at universities. So I've got timestamps down below, so if you want to jump straight to the AI generated essay and see what I think about that, go and hit one of those. So to explain why this is going to be such a huge topic at universities, let me just give you a bit of background on how assessment tends to work at universities. And I'm thinking mostly here about assessment in the arts and humanities, where it tends to be essay-based. So traditionally, assessment on a course like English or philosophy or history or something like that will be assessed through some combination of essays and in-person exams. And one of the really, really big issues that universities are concerned with and always have been concerned with is that really your piece of assessment? Is that really your essay, or have you copied it from somewhere? So with essays, there's always been this issue. So exams, in-person exams, where you go into the exam hall and under that time pressure, you have to write out your answer. That was kind of the gold standard of assessing students because there's very limited opportunities for trying to cheat, trying to plagiarize in the exam hall. Now, more recently, most universities have switched to a system of online essay submission. So what you would do is you send in your essay electronically, and universities use software which basically takes your text in your essay and compares it to, whatever's on the web. But still, in-person exams were still the gold standard for assessing students, where kind of any means of cheating or kind of dubious stuff was kind of taken out of the equation. Then we got hit with COVID, and that basically put an end temporarily to in-person exams. So over COVID, what happened was all the assessments that used to be done in person in an exam hall kind of got switched to online assessments, a little bit more like the essay system, where you would get a few questions set and you would have some time to do that at home and then send in your answers. So that's where we are up to 2022. And then in November of that year, a company called OpenAI released ChatGPT. And the thing is, it seems to be able to write very, very good university style essays. Every time you ask it a question, every time you ask it to write some text for you, it will give you slightly different text. And it doesn't just pull it off the web. It takes the information from lots of different sources and it rewrites them in its own style. So what it gives you isn't going to be word for word the same as anything else out there. And that just takes plagiarism detectors kind of completely out of the loop. And this has got universities really, really worried. And yeah, in the past, students could go to essay mills and have these companies write their essays for them. But that costs money, it takes time, and the quality of the essays it comes out with is pretty shocking. On the other hand, ChatGPT or other AI systems, it's free, it's quick, and the quality that it writes in, the language that it writes in, is very, very good. And this is basically why universities have got really, really worried about this. So if you use ChatGPT to write or help write your university essay, is it cheating? Yes, 100%. It's plagiarism. Plagiarism definition, it's going to be passing off somebody else's words as if they're your own. So you can quote from another source, you can paraphrase another source, but in all of those cases, you have to attribute those words or those ideas to the source that you're quoting or phrasing. If you use words from ChatGPT and you don't say, this is from ChatGPT, it is 100% cheating. It's 100% plagiarism. And if you got caught, well, maybe you would lose all your marks, maybe you would be kicked off the course, or, depends on your university, right? So just to be super clear, none of this is me advocating you using AI to write your essays. Just because you can get away with it doesn't mean that you should do it. Okay, so what I really wanted to look at was, how good are the essays that AI that ChatGPT or whatever is coming out with. So as it happens, ChatGPT, it's really in demand, it's frequently out of action, so I couldn't get onto that system, so I used an alternative that uses the same kind of technology as ChatGPT called ChatSonic. In the past, where people have compared these things, they give you roughly similar results. They kind of all use the same kind of technology. Just before we look at what ChatSonic came up with, I want to mention my Ko-Fi page. If you want to help me out to make more content like this, go over to Ko-Fi, have a look at the page there and see how you can help out. Okay, so I asked ChatSonic to write a university essay on, do we know that we're not brains in vats? This is a stock philosophical question that we're kind of studying, usually in first or second year, and it's basically very similar to Descartes' dreaming argument, right? So, do we know whether we're dreaming or not? And if we don't know that, maybe we don't know what we think we know about the external world. The brains in vats, it's like a modern version of that kind of thought experiment. So I think it's a good test for how would the AI compare to a fairly large batch of first year university level students. Okay, so here's what ChatSonic said. Typically, we would be asking students to write something like 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 words on this kind of topic. I couldn't get that many words out of the AI. It kind of gave me a couple of hundred words. So I'm going to mark what it's given me and try to assign a mark on the basis that the rest of the essay kind of carries on in the same style at the same kind of level. Okay, so we're going to mark an essay based broadly on the quality of its argument, on the quality of the knowledge and understanding that the student demonstrates, and on some, how well is it written, how well is it presented, what's the referencing like, okay. But the really crucial bit for a philosophy argument is, has the question been interpreted properly? Has it been explained? Are relevant arguments included in the essay? Are they analysed and discussed in a kind of relevant and appropriate way? And has the student put all that information together to form a clear conclusion that answers the question? So we're asking the question, do you know that you're not a brain in a vat? And ChatSonic starts off its essay by saying, this thought-provoking question has intrigued philosophers and scientists alike since the idea was coined by philosopher Hilary Putnam in the early 1980s. Okay, accurate, but completely irrelevant. Just skip all this background waffle when you write your essays. Students do this all the time. It just annoys the marker and it's not relevant to getting you any marks. Insofar as ChatSonic has done this, it's not showing itself up to be AI because this is what most students do, but it's not really a part of good essay writing. So in a way, ChatSonic is writing a typical student essay here, but it's not starting off in a good way. Putnam proposed that some unknown force may be controlling our environment and manipulating our experiences, essentially making us brains in vats. Okay, I mean, that's kind of right. It's not very specific. It's a bit waffly. So again, I'd be thinking, oh, this is a student who kind of roughly knows what we're talking about here, but hasn't really included any of the details. In particular, they haven't really explained the idea of a brain in a vat. But how can we know that we're not brains in vats? If a person is entirely manipulated by an outside force, then all of their beliefs, including their belief that they are not a brain in a vat, are false. Okay, well that's, again, it's kind of sort of true, but not very accurate, and it's not really getting us anywhere in answering this question. It's just kind of skirting around the issue. So if I'm marking this and thinking it's from a student, I'm thinking, well, they're kind of trying to set up the issue, but they haven't done it in a very precise or even a very concise way. So I'm thinking, yeah, it's kind of okay. Not great so far. For example, if a person is a brain in a vat, then they could not trust the evidence of their senses because the evidence of their senses is generated by the simulation from the outside force. Kind of more of the same. It's a little bit waffly. It's kind of doing a good explanation of why we're interested in the brain in the vat issue, but it's not really driving the essay forward. Again, it's okay, but it's not great. To answer Putnam's question, one must first determine whether we can trust the evidence of our senses. Okay, so now it seems like we're going to get on to answering the question. Good, this is what I want to see as a marker. But then it goes on to say, we first have to decide whether we can trust the evidence of our senses. This is a big mistake in writing this essay. The question is really asking in a roundabout way, can we trust the evidence of our senses? The argument that we can't trust our senses is basically that we could be a brain in a vat or something like that. So to say that in order to work out whether we're a brain in a vat, we have to first work out whether we can trust our senses, it's just getting the cart before the horse. It's kind of getting things all wrong. And if this was coming from a student, or I'm thinking it's from a student, I'm thinking, yeah, it's well written, but I'm not really sure they've got to grips with the question or the philosophy behind the question. So yeah, did they come to any of my lectures where I kind of talked about this is not how to write your essay on this topic? According to philosopher René Descartes, we can't trust our senses because they can be unreliable. When you're writing essays, don't give me all the, according to this guy this, and pretend that it's an argument, okay? What we really want in a philosophy essay is an argument. So if we're talking about can we trust our senses, I want an argument that says you might not be able to trust your senses. According to René Descartes, or according to this dude over here, we can't trust our senses. That's an opinion. It's not an argument. So, okay, essay, you've given me somebody's opinion, but I want to know the argument, and you don't tell me the argument. Yeah, we're not looking at a good essay here. On the other hand, philosopher John Locke argued that we can trust our senses because they have been dependable enough in the past. Okay, well, there's sort of an argument there, but why should it be that just because they're mostly dependable in the past, I could rely on them now? And haven't they also been, not dependable in the past? I want to know more detail on what Locke's argument is meant to be. Again, this seems a little bit like saying, oh, this dude's got an opinion, Locke thinks we can trust our senses, Descartes thinks we can't trust our senses, that's the opinion of two people that we call philosophers. That's not really what we want to do in a philosophical essay. I don't want a list of opinions. What I want is arguments and analyses of those arguments to work out which argument is better. Ultimately, the answer to Putnam's question relies on the individual. Ooh, okay, now this sounds like it's going to go on with a bit of we can't ever know anything kind of vibe, so this gets me worried because I really don't like it when essays do this. Some may find arguments more compelling, blah, blah, blah. Others may take Descartes' position, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, you might agree with one person, you might agree with the other. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that everyone has different opinions. What I want to know is, what is the answer that you have come up with by analysing all the different arguments that you present in your essay? What conclusion do you draw from them? In conclusion, okay, good. I want to know what your answer is to the question, so I want to hear in conclusion. The answer is, while the answer to Putnam's question may be subjective, just because different philosophers say different things, it doesn't mean that everything is subjective, right? Philosophers always disagree. That's kind of their job. On just about any philosophical debate that's worth having, you're going to find philosophers coming up with different opinions. Doesn't mean that everything's subjective. It just means it's kind of hard to get to an objective answer if there is one, right? So putting in your essay, there's different things that different people say, so kind of it's all subjective. That's a really bad way to conclude your essay. We may never know whether we are brains in vats or not. Well, yeah, that might be true, but if we rely on the evidence of our senses and our experiences, then we can trust that we are not. But again, that's kind of what the whole question was asking. The question is basically, can we trust our senses? Can we trust the evidence of our senses? And if your conclusion is, well, yeah, we can, if we can trust our senses, you're kind of not answering the question at all. You're just kind of repeating the question back to me. What are we going to say in evaluating this essay? Kind of assuming that it goes on for, 1,000 or 2,000 words or whatever in the same vein. Well, the first thing to note is it's really well written. It's written in a very clear and conversational style, which, I like. I think it shows that a student really knows how to write. It shows they know how to structure the essay. It kind of leads on nicely from one bit to the other, explaining the question, bringing in different points of view and concluding. So the structure is good and the writing is really clear. If you want to write in a really clear way, this is a good way to write. So ChatSonic can write really well. It can write in exactly the way that I would want a student to write. So, thumbs up for that. However, the content of the essay, the quality of the argument and the analysis that it's got in there is really, really poor. The quality of the writing, the English presentation, masks the fact that really what it's saying is really low quality. Now, if we were talking about something like a newspaper article kind of explaining the issue, something where we want a bit of information, we want a bit of background, and we want it to be over really quick without too much heavy lifting going on, this would be great, okay? But that's not what we're after in a university essay. In a university essay, like I keep saying, the quality, the marks are really all involved in the arguments that you present and the way that you analyse them, and then the way you bring all that stuff together to inform your firm conclusion. So my conclusion is ... something definite that really addresses the question, okay? And pretty much if it's a yes-no question, you want a definite yes or no answer by the end of your essay. This kind of essay that we've got from ChatSonic, it doesn't do that in the slightest. It kind of does the opposite. It says, one guy says this, one guy says that, and, maybe it's one, maybe it's the other, maybe we'll never know. It's kind of the worst thing you can do in the conclusion of your essay. So what kind of mark would this get for a first-year university essay, kind of assuming it goes on for the right length in the same style? Well, it's kind of hard to give it an exact mark because, the writing's really good, but other bits of it are really poor. Writing style would be first class, but I think the content would be really far down the scale. Maybe in the 50s, maybe in the 40s. So overall, I would be giving this essay probably somewhere in the mid to low 50s, so a 50, a 52, a 55, really because it hasn't engaged with any of the arguments that we would have been talking about in the lecture. Okay, so with that in mind, should you get ChatSonic to write your essays? Well, do you want an essay that's going to get something like low 50s? That's a low 2-2. Well, it's not a fail. You could write this essay very quickly and you could pass the module. You're not going to get a good degree. A good degree is usually a 2-1 or a first, but you would pass like this. That said, it's not that difficult or that time consuming to put together an essay of your own that would score, say, 50 to 55. You don't need to know all that much stuff. You don't need to have a great argument. You just really need to kind of take stuff from the lecture notes and bundle them together in a more or less cohesive way. You could do that on your own and hand it in, and then it would be your own work. You would get the same mark as the ChatGPT or ChatSonic or whatever essay, but you wouldn't risk getting caught for cheating, for plagiarizing, and being kicked off the course or whatever. So I guess my suggestion would be, don't use the AI, put your own essay together. If you have no idea what's going on, just kind of, do your best of paraphrasing the lecture notes or whatever in the best way that you can. And hopefully you're not in that situation. Hopefully you are a good student who's been working hard all term. And then, my guess would be you're going to write a much better quality essay than the kind of stuff that you can get out of ChatGPT or whatever. So as a good student, can you learn stuff from ChatGPT? Yeah, obviously you can. You can ask it to find information for you, and then you can take that information and rewrite it in your own words in the essay. Another thing you could do is ask ChatGPT to write you a bit of text and look at the writing style and see if your writing kind of matches up in clarity, in quality, in the kind of way it's paced to what ChatGPT has done. Okay, like I said, I think this excerpt from ChatSonic is a really good, clear, easy to follow writing style, and I would recommend it as a model for the kind of writing that you do, particularly for first or second year university essays. If you're getting to third year or postgrad level essays, you might want it to be a lot more technical than that, but you still want that kind of clarity in there. So writing university essays can be really hard. It's a real art. It takes a long time to master it, but if you want a few pointers that are going to help you with that, go and take a look at this video over here. Thank you so much to all my Ko-Fi supporters for making this content possible. Thank you to you for watching this far. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you guys back here soon.